Welcome to the Influential Personal Brand Podcast. This is the place where we help mission-driven messengers just like you learn how to build and monetize your personal brand. My name is Rory Vaden, and I'm the co-founder of Brand Builders Group, a Hall of Fame speaker, and New York Times bestselling author. And this show is to help experts learn how to become more wealthy and well-known. I know you're going to love it. Thanks for being here. Let's get started. Well, earlier this morning, I spent about 3 hours trying to get AJ's computer updated with patches and the most recent versions and backing up file storage and just getting things operating. And it was a fresh reminder and ironic timing because our guest today is Shawn Lemon. Shawn is a friend of the family because he's part of my good friend Michael Hyatt's family. He's married to one of Michael's daughters. And that's how I got to meet Shawn. But Shawn has built an incredible business with a very specific expertise. He is the founder of the Digital Organizer. And so for the last 17 years, he's been helping individuals get better at using technology. So the heart of it all is trying to keep up with how technology changes. But I would describe it as basically getting rid of your digital clutter, your if you have digital clutter, if you have digital disorganization, if you have digital chaos, if you can't find files, they're not named properly, you don't know who has the most recent version, you lose the passwords, you don't have naming conventions and syntax, all of these kinds of things that are little micro cuts of slowing you down and making your organization bleed from an efficiency perspective. Those are the kinds of things that Shawn is an expert at talking about, and we're going to talk about some of them today. So Shawn, welcome to the show, man. Good to have you.
Good to be here. Thank you so much.
This stuff frustrates me. There is nothing that makes me more angry. I don't get angry at politics. I don't get angry when people say mean things. I don't get angry when someone cuts me off in traffic. I get angry when I lose time because I cannot find something on my computer. I get the stupid spinny ball of death. I have to spend 30 minutes looking for something, or something is not working, something is broken. That's when I get furious, when things are not working. So can you help us with that?
Absolutely. I would love to. I'm in the same boat, and that's why this business exists, because I can get extremely irate for my own stuff, and it's got to be dialed in because I'm not here to work on tech. I'm here to create stuff and to help people, not fight with my technology. And that's what we're here for. So can't wait to talk about it.
So I was going to ask you, why does this happen? But I
Yeah.
think I know why it happens. It happens
Yeah.
because we're all moving too fast. We're too fast to stop and think about how to name things, where to store them, having a file structure, and it's just like, I just don't have time for it. I never have time for it. And so it just gets worse and worse and worse and worse and worse. And then one day it just like explodes.
Yeah.
Um, so so how do we prevent that? Like, you mentioned before, there's four main areas that you support people with. Can you walk
Yeah.
us through what those four areas are?
Yeah. So uh, everyone has three components of their digital world, really four. We'll focus on the third one first, and then we'll hit the fourth. And that's communicating. I mean, we're using our technology to communicate, to create and store files, so managing assets, and keeping track of tasks and projects. And all three of those things are intrinsically connected. We get an email that has a file that needs to go into file storage, but instead of putting it in file storage, you're trying to organize your email. Or we get an email that's part of a larger project and we need that critical piece of information or that deadline. And so we leave it in our inbox instead of grabbing it and putting it into project management. So we got tons of overlap between them. So really, we've chosen to focus on those three things. And then the fourth one, which gets everyone irate, which is passwords and not being able to get into an account,
Oh
or
my
you've
gosh,
hired someone else to do
so
something
annoyed
for
with the
you. Oh
passwords,
my God.
dude.
Yeah.
Like 70 bazillion passwords. They
Yeah.
want me to update it. Don't use the same one. It's like, dude.
Yeah.
And then we use one pass, which is
Mm-hmm.
kind of good, but like it's still a pain. And then it's like I'm just logging now. I'm logging into that thing every day, adding new junk to it. Yep, I
Yeah.
got it. So
And
you
then the
call
two-step
passwords the fourth.
verification.
You said
Hmm.
communicating,
Yep.
storing. I call it communicating, storing, and project management
Yep.
effectively.
And then passwords to bring it all together, because the fact is it's just extremely important. You can get away with using fluffy 123 and variations of that until you can't. And then like one of our clients, he brought home $500,000 a year in profit from a partnership for his marketing company. The whole thing imploded because his developer was using some simple password. The account got hacked. They got into all of their client stuff, and then and started buying ads with their clients' company credit cards. I
Whoa.
mean, it's just insanity, to try and operate remotely with other people if you're not using a good password manager. So that's the piece that really kind of pulls it all together.
Okay, so where do we start with managing all this chaos? And I'll speak for my audience here and say we don't have time to deal with this. We don't really want to talk about this. So how can we do this efficiently?
Well, to do it the most efficiently, you can hire someone to help you.
Okay, that's
um,
not that's that I that's a good option. Many of us would like to do that. So consider yourself interviewing for the job.
Yeah. Okay. So really, there's a few different ways to approach this. You can go with a course, the school of YouTube. You can find somebody who's got a course. I've got materials on this that you can buy. There's a lot of different ways to go about it. The fact is, it's single digits of people who actually finish courses. And then you could also hire somebody to do this for you. They're promising that they're going to go in. You just tell them what your stuff is and how you want it organized. Then they'll go in and do it, but they're really creating their system and not one for you. And so almost always those people will have to keep going back to the organizer over and over again. Or you could choose a hybrid approach where you're working with someone to co-create. So basically, and that's what we do, is we've
Mhm.
got our resource library, basically the course and the framework that we take our people through, and then we do it together. And so, we want a very systematic approach, incorporating, how we're communicating, how we're storing files, and task management all in our master plan, so that we have clear demarcation lines between each one of them. And that's really designing from the front end, what tools do I want to use and what part of those tools should I not be using? And I think that's a really big part of the process, is understanding what you shouldn't be using in some of these
So
apps.
where do you start? Do you start
Mm-hmm.
with storage? Do you start with passwords? Do you start with project management system? Do you start with communicating an email
Mm-hmm.
inbox? Like,
Yeah.
what's the starting point?
Most of the time, the starting point is email,
Okay.
because the majority of people are drowning in email. And while some people recognize how much anxiety and stress it causes them, some people don't, because it's ubiquitous. Everyone's dealing with email overload and marketers hammering their inbox, and trying to just stay organized with that. So if we can actually start with email and calm down the noise and be really strategic about how we approach email, so that we're not having it open all day and reacting, and be more strategic, that gives us so much more time and mental energy to start strategically tackling how we're approaching project management, or how we're even planning the work we do, and how are we going to do our folder structures and things like that. So that's a great starting point.
So let's start
However,
there. So let's dive in. So when you
yeah,
go on email,
yeah,
because I think that's great. I totally agree. That makes so much sense, right? It's the
mm-hmm,
entry point for all the chaos, and then you're just drowning, and that's the thing you're trying to keep up with. You can't keep up
yep,
with.
yep, yeah,
So I like that a lot. So what are the principles that we need to know or follow
mm-hmm.
in building out our email strategy?
Yeah. So the first thing is, you should do so much less organization in email than you think you need to.
Huh.
If I had my way, you're not organizing any email. Email should be a communication platform. We send a message, we receive a message. Now, we may send someone a file or receive a file, but it does not belong in email. We take that file, download it, and put it into our folder structure so that we can find it. when we're looking for a file as a part of a project, we should never have to go to our email to find that. It should be where we're working on that project. And that's where we need to store things. So it's not necessarily we're keeping all presentations together. It's, are we doing a presentation for a pitch for this company? And we've got all of their logos, the research that we've done for that, et cetera. Well, the file for that presentation goes together. So stop organizing in email. Uh, you can use some automation tools. I like SaneBox, and SaneBox allows me to create a couple of folders. I only use 2 smart folders later for newsletters that I truly read. And if I find that I've been deleting a few newsletters, it's time to unsubscribe. And then I got another folder for financial and shipping. And why I like using this tool is when I get an email from Amazon, I drop it into financial, and SaneBox will make sure that anything sent from that specific address gets to my receipts folder or my financial folder. So everything skips my inbox, and I have a focused inbox that just has communication from people. By ruthlessly unsubscribing, getting rid of these newsletters, coupons, and lists that you're on will really help. And then we can start filtering out other things that we need that really shouldn't hit the inbox that we do want to keep. And then we start triaging. So that's really the starting point. And then you can go deeper into how do you approach processing the emails from real people.
Love that. I will tell you, I've hired so many assistants over the years, and
Yeah.
every new one comes with a new way to want to organize the
Yep.
inbox. And I have always pushed back on it because I'm like,
Mm-hmm.
I don't have time to read my main inbox, let alone go read 76 sub
Yep.
inboxes.
Yep.
So I love that.
Mm-hmm.
So ruthlessly unsubscribe first
Yep.
and foremost. Are
Mm-hmm.
you just doing those one at a time, or are you using like roll up or a tool like,
We
to
want to do it manually.
we
If
do it
if
manually?
possible, we want to do it manually. If we get pushback from that, SaneBox has a feature called the black hole. And anything that you put in that folder from that sender, they're automatically going to be put in black hole, marked as red, and it purges itself after 7 days automatically.
Hmm.
So if you don't want to go through the trouble of unsubscribing, stick them in the black hole. That'll take care of it for you. And my preference would be to manually unsubscribe because you don't know how many lists that company has added you to. It might be 20 different lists. If you sign up for buy something from Under Armour, you're going to be on 10
Mm.
different brands lists. That could be 50 subscriptions just from one simple sign up. So if we go in and unsubscribe it, then we know we're not going to get it into a future. And if I want to get rid of SaneBox later, I can get rid of it, and my inbox isn't going to be
Yeah, there's also
overflowing
something.
again.
There's a mental purging that happens there, where you go,
It
I'm
does.
deliberately choosing. I don't want this to come into my world anymore. I think that's powerful.
Mm-hmm.
So I love that. What's step two when you get your inbox down to, all right, it's only communication.
Mm-hmm.
I hear you saying get files out of the get newsletters out of there, get
Mm-hmm.
coupons out of there,
Yeah.
basically get files out of there.
Mm-hmm.
Then what happens next?
So we want to get rid of things that are older than 30 days. So if you got 20,000 emails in your inbox, what are they doing there? Like they shouldn't be there anymore.
Their
We need to,
storage. That's what they're doing. Like I can answer that question.
yeah, yeah.
We're storing things there that are like old emails of like I might need this one day.
Right, right. And that's fine. You can keep it. It just doesn't belong in the inbox anymore. Like Gmail, when you hit archive, it just takes it out of the inbox, but it's still searchable. And you're not going to browse through 20,000 emails. So why leave it in the inbox? Let's clear it out. So, and if you sign up for this file organization guide that I'm going to tell you about at the end, I'm going to send you a couple of videos on how to actually do the purging, unsubscribing, and setting up SaneBox. So all of this stuff that I'm talking about, I'm going to send you videos of how to actually do this practically, so you don't have to memorize this process from the podcast. But we want to get rid of those everything older than 30 days. We need to purge the newsletters, and 30 days is a good starting point, and then you keep up with it from there. And then after that, let's archive the things that are taken care of. Let's delete what we never need to see again. And now what we're left with are things that we need to deal with. And it's time to take a look at how do we do these tasks? Like, what are we getting? and when should we be doing them? Because we got stuff that needs to be dealt with right away. We have things that need to be dealt with. Just we maybe group them together because we have a number of bills to pay, for example. Well, maybe we can snooze all of those for Thursday morning when we have time set aside to do that. And
Yes.
then we've got items that are part of a larger project that shouldn't really belong in email anymore. Let's copy the information. Let's put it into Asana where we're keeping track of those tasks so that I can archive the email and move on and have the information that I need when that task comes up for a due date in my project management system.
Okay. So I love this because that's the other reason why items are in the inbox is I'm using it as my to-do list,
Yep.
right? So I'm
Yep.
going, crap, I need that email because that's my reminder to do
Mhm.
the thing. And you're saying if you're doing that, you should maybe not do that. You should take that out of there and put that onto your task management or project management system
Mhm.
and to get it over there. Now you still have to deal with it, right? It
Still have to
doesn't
deal with it.
magically make it go away.
Right.
And on there's a part of me that goes, well, now I'm just looking in two places instead of one. So
Right.
how is that more efficient?
Yeah.
Is it
How do
just
you, and
because
when
the
do you do one versus the other?
right?
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. So if it's a communication thing that you need information to come back at a certain point, something along those lines, I like to snooze emails. I don't want to put it all in Asana to check Asana to then go back in email. So I will snooze an email to pop back up at the time that I have set aside to actually do that thing. And if I snooze it multiple times, then that's a trigger for me of, okay, am I actually going to do this? Do I need to knuckle down or do I just need to say, hey, this isn't getting done? I'm sorry, or just, delete it and move on and let go of the thing. So if it has to do with communication and it's not really part of a larger project, I don't want you to have to store that somewhere else just to come back to email. Snooze it for the time that either later in the day or for next week or even next month, or if you said, hey, I need to hear back by Thursday, at 3, and it's Thursday at noon and you haven't gotten, you want to give them some time. Maybe it comes back Thursday at noon in your inbox to let you know, hey, the deadline's coming. You might want to ping them one more time.
Okay. So now I'm moving files. We're getting rid of spam stuff. We're moving
Mm-hmm.
files to storage. We're moving tasks to project management. So
Mm-hmm.
now my inbox, we're even moving old emails to storage because it's like if it's just for reference, then get it out of the inbox and store it. So
Get it
I'm
out of the inbox. It's still searchable in email because that's really where you're going to want to look. You need to leave them there. We're not going to turn emails into files.
is uh, okay. So then are we kind of done with the inbox? Like, does that kind of
Pretty
go
much.
now everything that makes sense to me. So now everything
Mhm.
is sort of where it belongs.
Yeah.
My new problem is now I have what was 100 emails. I now have 76 tasks to complete in my project management tool. And is would you consider calendaring as part of project management or how do those overlap?
Yeah. So a lot of people want to say incorporate their project management into their calendar. So if they create a task there, then it shows up on their calendar, or they'll use their calendar for task management to show them what items they're supposed to be doing. I like to chunk it and say, this is the time for this type of work on Thursday mornings. And so then I open up Asana and I'm looking at either that project that I know I'm supposed to be working on, or I'm looking at my tasks for the day to start knocking out things that are really all scheduled for that day. So I've got the time set aside for it. So my calendar tells me where I'm supposed to be working, and then I'm primarily working in Asana to process that stuff. And maybe I'm doing some documenting. Maybe I am going to send a quick email or something along those lines. But that's the place where that's really directing the work for that period of time.
Okay, so you're using your project management tool, in your case Asana,
Mm-hmm.
as your to-do list and like to direct your work every day.
Yeah. Yeah. And I clear out my inbox and get to inbox zero by snoozing. because it's just not practical for us to deal with every single message as they come in. And we can't answer every email in a day, every single day. So snoozing has to happen for when we actually have the information
It's just funny
or
because
my
when you're saying
workload is too big.
snoozing,
Mm-hmm.
the title of my second book was Procrastinate on Purpose. Like the whole
Yeah.
book is
Yeah.
about is about the discipline to deliberately push something off on purpose. And then you're
Yeah.
just saying you're just kicking it out. So but it's still out there. It's gonna cycle back around. It's gonna flow back around to you. But so the purpose of doing it is just to clear up space for the actual priorities to sit uncluttered in and amongst the stuff that's like you're just kicking it out.
Right. Because if you are caught in a dopamine loop of email, of you're sitting there, you're solving problems, you're answering things, then you find yourself kind of chained to email, and that's what makes you actually feel productive. And then it makes, and because the email is a to-do list and there's constantly things coming in, then you stay in that spot and it's hard to let it go and truly focus on the important thing that needs to get done that you've been procrastinating on if we've got this big list. But if you go in and clear those things out because it's really not necessary to do this item right now and I have more important things to do, and you snooze it, it's not in your view anymore, and it's a heck of a lot easier to go move on and do the things that are actually important to you.
Uh,
And yeah, and if you snooze things multiple times and you don't get it done, you procrastinate multiple times and it's not done, then that's your red flag. Should you even be doing it in the first place? This is in my drudgery zone. I need to delegate this because I just don't want to do it, or
yeah.
I need to stop doing this task.
So talk to me about project management. This is good. This is good. Good, Sean. I mean, I'm following you so far. When I get into the project management,
Mhm.
how do you think about and approach that list? Because now you have a list. Is there anything big there that changes in our thinking about how we tackle the projects or how we organize them or label them or name them or code them or like
Mhm.
anything related to like tips on you know tackling the
Yeah.
projects?
Yeah. So I would say the biggest mistake that most people make when doing project management is they do big list dumps. And they get this new app and they take all of the things that they think that they need to do and consolidate a bunch of lists and just create this massive task dump, and it feels really good and you get a massive sense of satisfaction for it and can start some momentum. But then it's just this big dumping ground of a lot of possibilities and things that really aren't strategically placed there. So I like to kind of flip this around and say, I actually want to do my list dump in a document. And I'll call this the back burner list. And that's actually what ours is called. It's a Google Doc called Backburner. And so it's very easy to search and pull up. And that's all of the things that I would like to do and that need to get done and everything in between. And then we strategically look at that list um, quarterly. And sometimes when we finish something early, then we go back to the back burner list and we decide what is the most important thing that needs to get done, and we turn those into projects and build out our system and our schedule around what we really truly intentionally need to get done. And that creates so much more focus in your project management tools so that you're not exposed to a lot of other things. And that alone can really help create a lot more focus and make project management less overwhelming.
Okay, so if you're using your project management tool, it's like you're only using your project management tool to have tasks that are related to big projects, not just random
Yes.
one-off tasks. So then do
And
you
well,
use it?
also recurring things too, like your taxes. You got quarterly taxes due, multiples at the beginning of the year, different deadlines for that. That happens recurring. So we'll factor that into there's recurring stuff and then there are also projects.
Okay. And then what about so you've got recurring things and projects on there. What
Mhm.
about just like the one-off tasks that come up that are like, whatever, I need to RSVP for a birthday party or that do you just use a to-do list for daily sort of independent items that are not connected to a project?
Yeah. So it really depends. I kind of approach those individually on where it's at. So if I got the RSVP in my inbox, so if they emailed me an RSVP,
It's
but I
quick
need to
enough, you would
check
just
with,
do it.
it's quicker to do it, or we'll say, we'll add a complication. I got to check my wife's schedule first, and we need to discuss if we even can go in the first place, and who's going to watch our child, and all of those other things. So I can't RSVP right now. Well, what do? I tell my phone, remind me at 6:30 to talk to Madeline about the birthday party. And then I snooze that email for tomorrow morning. So we can have the discussion tonight, come to a conclusion, and then tomorrow, when I open up my email, then I can go ahead and RSVP for that. So I'm going to snooze that for tomorrow, and it's going to pop back in at 9 a.m.
Gotcha. Um, Anything else in the project management space? I mean, is it
Yeah,
just basically like blocking time to get stuff done?
a lot of it's blocking time, but another huge mistake people make are they create tasks out of projects. So they think, oh, put the Christmas lights up is a project or it's a task, and that's just one thing. Well, like if you just moved into a new house, putting the Christmas lights up is not a single task. You got to figure out a lot of stuff. Do you have everything? There's a number of pieces involved in that. So, so often we really need to break down a task and think, what are all of the steps that I need to take in order to complete this task? And you might find you've actually got a project on your hands. There's a lot going on in this. And so by creating a task that's impossible to get done in one sitting, it really sets you up for failure because you're like, God, I didn't even make any progress on my to-do list because you couldn't check that item off. We need to break things up into bite-sized chunks with due dates attached to them so that when we actually make progress on it, we can check it off and get that sense of accomplishment and see I am moving in the right direction. And that can really help to create a lot more momentum instead of feeling like you're never making progress.
Um, so I like that. What's the difference between a task and a project?
A project is a whole lot of tasks.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And just like basically if it's more than five or something, then it's really a project.
Yeah, and you can use a milestone really. So Asana is broken up into. I like Asana because it's on Rails versus ClickUp. It's totally loosey goosey. It's choose your own adventure and you create it. So if you really know what you want, that's a great platform. So Asana is broken up in teams, and then teams have projects, then projects have milestones, uh, and then tasks or sections, milestones, tasks, and then subtasks. So if your project is huge, that's why project management is really different than task management. You've got a lot more layers to it to be able to manage all of it. So if I've got a task that has five things that go along with it, then I might just create five subtasks. So create the task and then add the subtask of that's going to consist of these five actions. But if they're all being done on different days, I'd rather them not be subtasks. I'd rather them actually be tasks. Just visually, it's different. And I wish I could show you, but
You're saying projects, so teams, projects, sections, milestones, tasks, and subtasks.
yep.
Gotcha.
Mm-hmm.
Um, Here's a question for you.
Yep.
In a in bird's eye view of a week,
Mm-hmm.
how much time should I be spending in meetings versus communicating versus doing work versus like, you know, and then a marginal time to like place wherever. Um, because I've realized it's just like it takes time to answer an inbox. It takes time
Mm-hmm.
to schedule stuff in a project management tool. It takes time to like name files. File storage is something that like I'm amazed at how much time I lose just, after this interview. I've got to upload the file. I've got to name it.
Mhm.
I've got to, either notify people, or I need to set up a workflow that notifies people. Like,
Mhm.
and it otherwise the file disappears and it's lost
Yeah.
forever and we never have it. Like,
Hmm.
any thoughts high level on that, or like of a week, how much is there, like a limit or rule to how many meetings you should be in, or do you not really do it that way? You just kind of let your inbox drive to your project management, which drives to your tasks.
It's more intentional, but there's no rules. So each person has to approach this from a little bit differently because we all have different roles. And sometimes those roles fluctuate, and we're having more what Michael Hyatt would describe front stage work, meaning um, actually like this would be front stage work. We're both having a conversation for the public. This is part of what we do of delivering our stuff.
Mhm.
And then we've got backstage work, which would be downloading the file, renaming it, doing all of those things. So there are times where we're doing more front stage work or our role requires that of us, and then more backstage. And then we also have offstage work, which would be free time, time with family, recharge, and things like that. So, kind of thinking of it from a high level of, do I have enough backstage work to support me to do my front stage? Because we can't just only do meetings and never have any processing time. So it's just recognizing what your needs are. And this is what's really nice about having an ideal week, where you take a look at your calendar and say, ideally, I want to spend Monday catching up, planning, doing administrative work, and really setting me up for the week. And if I need to, I can slip some meetings in the second half of Monday. But the first half of Monday is sacred, and I'm not letting anyone in on that. So that's all backstage work. Whereas Tuesday and Thursday, and then the second half of Friday, I just need a lot of time for meetings. Right now, my job is podcasts, sales calls, and occasionally some really technical work. So I need to make sure that there's plenty of time for that. But then I still have other administrative stuff. So that's where in the middle of the week, Wednesday is primarily deep work, really trying to make a lot of progress on projects. And I'm trying to protect that from meetings. And then Friday morning, kind of same thing, get focused before wrapping up at the end of the day. And maybe I've got some meetings on the second half. So you can see I'm chunking and having kind of overarching ideas of when I'm doing things. And then that can flex as needed. But I have kind of a starting point of plenty of time for front stage, plenty of time for backstage, and I will flex those as needed.
Hmm. Roger that. Um, I want to ask you about file storage, but
Yeah.
just before I let you go,
Mm-hmm.
the tips, keys to file storage.
Mm-hmm.
What are things that we're doing wrong that we need to stop doing there?
Yeah. Okay. So when we're in business, there are certain things that you really do not want to cheap out on. And that's going to be business file storage.
Hmm.
So when we're working in Google accounts, you can bootstrap with Google Drive and a Gmail account, but as soon as possible, you've got to get set up with Google Workspace. Or if you're a big Dropbox user, you need to get on Dropbox Business when you start collaborating with other people, because these business subscriptions give us a different type of folder. We'll take Google Drive, for example. In Google Drive, we have My Drive, and that's how everything started, where I can create a folder. And Rory, I can invite you to my folder so that we can collaborate. Anything that you put in my folder, you still own. So if you decide you're done with this account, maybe you were freelancing for me and you're doing this thing and you created a Gmail specifically for that freelancing gig, you delivered your stuff to me and you decide this isn't for me anymore and you delete that Google account, it deletes all of the files you created for me and put in my folder from my folder because you don't own it.
You lost me.
Okay.
You lost me. You're basically you're saying if you're using personal accounts to do business, then if you hire
Whoever
like a
created the
vendor,
folder or whoever created the file owns it. Not where is it at, but who created it owns the file.
gotcha.
So you hire someone from the Philippines to start creating documents for you, managing different things, creating some spreadsheets, keeping track of all of this stuff. And then they don't work for you anymore and you're not using the right folder and they delete their account. Everything they created for you goes bye bye.
Yeah, that's happened to me. It happened with about 165 videos that I recorded that we turned into blog posts,
Oh,
and they
God.
just literally vanished out of Dropbox. And everyone's like, "Where did they go? How come
Yeah.
we don't have them?" It was this exact thing. There was an overseas VA that was handling stuff, and apparently they, cleaned out their Dropbox to save money on their account or
Mm-hmm.
whatever. And I mean, is that what you're talking about? Where basically
Exactly.
they
That's
had
exactly it. And
they
how much
must.
money, how much time, like all of those resources. And this is because we didn't upgrade to business and or we didn't use the right type of folder. If you use Dropbox for business and you created a team folder and invited that VA to the team folder, anything that they put in your folder you own. And on Google, it's called shared drives. So we have to be on the level that, as of today, is $14 a month or 12 or 14.40, depending on if you're paying yearly.
And when you
We've
say
got to
own
be
it, you're
on
just
that
saying you
level
have
to get
control
access
over
to it.
it. They can't delete it because it's your business folder.
Well, what happens
But it's
is,
not like IP ownership, or is it
yeah,
both?
it's file ownership, not IP.
Okay.
So it's just purely technical.
Right,
So in
but
the
it's
first,
like, what good is IP ownership if you hire a graphic designer to hire a file and you own the IP, but then they delete the file because you don't have
exactly,
the files? Like, oh, I own IP on something that doesn't exist.
yeah, yeah. So if you use the right folder, they put the file in your folder. Ownership transfers to you.
Hmm.
So when you delete that person from the folder because your engagement is over, then they are fully out of your stuff and you still own everything and have control over it. And if you're not using the right folders, you don't get those options.
Yeah. And so you're saying that's called Dropbox Business if you use Dropbox or uh,
Shared drives in so
Google
Google shared
Workspace.
drives instead of my drive. So a lot of people confuse those because they think, oh, I shared that folder with someone else. It's a shared folder, but it's not a technical shared drive. And then we can choose what level of permissions this VA has. Can they add but they can't delete? So we get to set those permissions.
Uh-huh. And if they leave or you remove them, you still have access to all the files that were in that folder
Yep.
versus if they started a personal folder, they share the folder, you have access to it while it's there, but then when they leave, the folder follows them.
Mm-hmm. So you'd have to download all of that stuff and then put it into your drive so that you actually maintain ownership. So when working with somebody, you want to create the folder. And this is where you've said you've hired multiple VAs over the years and they all had their own systems. That's why it's important for us to create our own system. I've got somebody in another country dealing with, or, handling all of my social media, creating stuff for me, all of the rest. But I said, when you work with me, you're not going to create a folder. I'm going to create a folder for you. And I'm going to send you a video of how I want you to use it. This is where you're going to put posts in that you've created for my approval. You let me know. And then I put it in a folder called approved posts, approved reels, or I comment on it to say, you need to change this, you missed the point, change this graphic, whatever it is. That gets done. And then I can move it into approved. So I'm creating the system and they can use whatever Gmail account they want. And I maintain all control.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Um, yeah, that's powerful. I've never understood that until this very moment, what the conceptual difference is. It's so confused. Like it's not,
It is.
they don't make that ridiculously clear. At least,
It's no.
I
And the
mean,
thing
they
is,
haven't made it idiot proof enough for me to figure out the difference between like a shared folder and a shared drive. Like that's a
yeah,
big deal. That's a
this
really
is
big deal.
the frog in the pot. All of this technology is is we're building the plane while we're flying it. So Google Drive, Dropbox, OneDrive, all of these services started as consumer products. And then these problems appeared, and then they created business level subscriptions and started solving the problems. But are they marketing? This is what you need to do, and here's the technical answer, and all this stuff? No, there's just
Right.
pitching the solution, trying to get the next subscription, not choosing to
When
educate their
they're
people
like,
on
"Do you
how
want
this
to pay
works.
$99 a month to be able to share your folders?" I'm like, I already can share my folders. I don't think I want to
Exactly.
pay $99 a month.
Right. Right.
And then all your files disappear one day, and you go, "What happened to my files? Those were my
Mm-hmm.
file." Like,
Yeah.
um, yeah. Anything real quick on passwords?
Yeah. So use a password manager. I love 1Password. You got to set it up fully.
Yeah, it's
Um,
not set up
it
fully.
you got to set it up fully. You know, when you set it up on your iPhone, you install the app. You got to go into the password section and turn that on. You want to turn off Safari so those aren't competing. Then you need to turn the extension on in Safari. So you have three distinct things that you need to make sure that you get done on every iPhone that's logging into that account or iPad. You know, the Mac, you got to set up the extension on all of your browsers so that it really works. And then in Safari, you got to tell it turn off Safari's autosave so those two aren't competing. Chrome just does it automatically, but for some reason they don't with Safari. So it's those sorts of considerations we really need to put in place. Is when you do the password management, you got to go all the way. And then it's phenomenal. And nobody has to bug me for two-step verification text messages ever, because I integrate that two-step login into the login itself in 1Password. So if I'm sharing the password with you, you also have the two-step verification code that's automatically generating in that login. So that completely solves the problem.
So you're saying you can share the two-step validation
Code.
part?
Mm-hmm. Yep. You can integrate that into that saved item.
Hmm. That's pretty cool. If you have other people logging into certain accounts.
Yeah. Yeah, 100%. Because you want your social media accounts super locked down. I think Shalene Johnson had her Instagram account hacked. They started posting hardcore porn on her account. She lost a third of her audience, cost her $250,000 all in all to get everything under control, do all of this stuff, and then had to rebuild her following again because of a stupid account password being hacked. We cannot afford to not use strong passwords on our social media accounts, especially if you have an influential personal brand. You need a strong password and you need two-step verification set up.
Uh, yeah, I got a call this week from a client who had their Instagram hacked. It's the second time this year we've had a client that was like, my Instagram account is gone, like just
Oh
disappeared
my.
because someone hacked the password. Um,
Yeah.
what they really do is they hack into your email and then they email the password and then they get it and then they reset your password and they lock you out and then they hold you ransom for
Yeah.
it's terrible.
There's like 30, I think it's 34% of ex-employees have the login accounts for their previous employers, even after they've left the company, because they're sharing this spreadsheet with variations of Fluffy123 for all of their accounts. And then sharing that in amongst the company, and someone leaves, they just know what that password is.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, so to go all the way, you're saying you need to download the app on your phone, you need to install the extensions on the browsers, and then you need to go into your phone settings and disable Safari and turn on the somewhere in the security settings of the phone.
Yeah, and you should also import the lists. So Chrome's probably been saving logins, Safari's been saving logins. You can export that list and import it into 1Password. It is very easy to do. They have guides to do the whole thing, and they've made it very simple. And then clean up the logins and go through it from there. So it's not really tough to get things up and going. You just want to approach it as a project, set time aside to do it, and make it happen.
Mm-hmm. Uh, Wow, this is good stuff, Sean. I mean, it's really important, and a lot of this stuff too. It's just like, man, you got to take the time on the front end, but it saves so much time long term.
It's
And
truly the ROI is massive. But it's those tiny little minutes and the frustrations and the things that we don't think about. This creates capacity for you. It's not generating revenue, but it creates more capacity, more creativity, all of the different things, and a better working environment. Just it's like if we were to make our digital workplaces physical, you would never tolerate that. And that's what people are struggling in and dealing with day in and day out. They're working in a super messy house. It's hard to get things done. It's not very fun. And so if we can make that super easy, approach it as a project. Yeah, it's going to take you some time to do, maybe some money to get some help to get it done. But when you do, I mean, it's so nice having this dealt with.
hmm. Brother, where should people go to learn more about you and what you're up to?
Yeah. The best thing to do is go to thedigitalorganizer.com/IPB. This is the Influential Personal Brand Podcast, IPB. So go to thedigitalorganizer.com/IPB and you can download my file organization guide. So if you want to get your files organized, you want to consolidate things from a bunch of different areas, I've got a step-by-step process to take you through it with videos, examples of the whole thing. When you do that, you get added to my newsletter, and I'm going to send you a few emails of getting your email organized and other things like that. So there's a whole path for you to go down, and I'm going to give you so many resources, just on the front end. And then if you want to stick along for the newsletter, would love to see you there, and you can reach out if you want to talk to me. You can have a discovery call with me.
Really cool. We'll put that link in the show notes, of course, so you can hit those. Check out Sean. Go find him on social and leave him a comment if you're listening so that he knows you're there and say hello. And thanks. So generous, Sean. Really, really helpful. And my friend, we continue to wish you all the best. And I'm sure we'll talk to you again soon.
Same to you. Thanks so much.